The fighting nerds are something else. Carlos Prates makes that fight look easy against Neil Magny. Knockout, out cold, first round, simple and straightforward performance by someone who was an 8-1 favorite. And he called out Jeff Neal as well as Jack Della Maddalena, which are great fights. I would love to see him fight Jeff Neal next, but the guy's punching power is absolutely absurd. He's the first fighter to ever knock out Li Jingliang. No one's ever knocked out Neil Magny in the first round before. And he's tied with Alex Pereira for the second longest knockout streak in the UFC right now. He grazed Magny, grazed him with the left hand behind the ear. Very similar to when Conor beat Dustin way back. It looks like the punch doesn't even land in real time, but when you look at it in slow motion, on the replay, you see it just nicks him right behind the ear, and that was enough to put him out cold. One single shot like that. And it wasn't the only display of his power. I mean, even that short right hook dropped Magny, even though Carlos did not hit him with the fist. Look how Carlos Prates landed that right hook. That's the shot that dropped Magny. As Magny was moving forward, trying to land his right straight, elbow way flared out. Carlos easily just pulled back away from it, slapped him across the head with kind of his palm, almost like a palm strike in the fingers, on the side of the head, dropped Magny badly. And that was the beginning of the end of the fight for Neil Magny. I don't think he ever really recovered from that shot. Every single punch from Carlos Prates was hurting Magny until the knockout. And the crazy thing about the knockout sequence was Carlos sprawled on an unconscious body. The man was aware. Well, maybe not aware that he was knocked out, but he was aware of any kind of takedown opportunity from his opponent. You could tell that was part of his game plan, where he was constantly ready for the takedowns of Neil Magny. So when he threw that left straight, he immediately went to sprawling, thinking that Neil Magny actually changed levels to get the takedown. But little did he know, Carlos knocked him out. That right there shows that Carlos Prates was absolutely on point, because it wasn't the only takedown from Neil Magny. It was the majority of what Magny was doing throughout the fight. Grabbing onto that single leg, trying to slow the fight down, trying to get the fight to the ground, but it was actually Carlos that reversed him with the only takedown of the fight, which is pretty wild, right? Magny's approach to the fight was to wrestle, and Carlos out-wrestled him. Look at the way that Carlos was able to defend the takedowns. Like the first shot, Magny throws a right hand in order to distract Carlos up top so he can go under for the single leg, which works. He grabs onto the leg and he tries to turn the corner, dragging Carlos to the ground, but Carlos puts his arm across Magny's face and kind of butt drags him, pushing Magny up against the fence while on one leg. This is very impressive stuff from Carlos Prates. That's some insane balance to keep himself up on one leg and push Magny to the fence, hopping forward. He's exploding constantly, jumping forward, pushing Magny into the fence, while Magny was holding onto the single leg the entire time. And only when they got to the fence was Magny able to reverse the position, put Carlos up against it, but then Carlos reverses him and drives him forward, taking the fight to the ground. And Magny at one point had Carlos's leg all the way up in the air, pushing him back, still able to stay on his feet and defend the takedown. Another single leg takedown from Neil Magny gets stuffed. Carlos easily able to defend it and push Magny away. And Magny eventually resorted to the desperate head and arm throw, trying to clinch up with Carlos, who was able to defend and push Magny away again. This goes to show you that Carlos Prates' takedown defense is very, very good. Is it elite? Is it able to defend against Bilal Muhammad or some of the better wrestlers at welterweight? We don't know, but it was definitely good enough to completely shut down Neil Magny's wrestling game and even out-wrestle him in the fight. But that gave Carlos Prates a lot more confidence to start being more aggressive in the fight and have absolutely no respect for Magny's power. He was walking Magny with his hands down, even getting punched in the face, and just did not care at all. He did not even care to get punched in the face, walking right through Magny's punches like mosquitoes flying into a windshield. And even in the knockout sequence, he gets punched first. Magny lands his jab, does absolutely nothing to Carlos, and he just gets overpowered in that exchange. Every single shot from Carlos Prates was hurting Magny, man. It was insane. And not only the punches, but even the kicks. Kicking the inside of Magny's leg and just blasting it out to the side like that. Carlos' striking power is absolutely insane. But we do have to be honest that he fought Neil Magny, and Magny's not in his prime anymore, so it was an easy fight for Carlos. A fighter who doesn't have punching power, a fighter whose only real threat is his ability to outlast you and wrestle you against the fence. Carlos's entire game plan was very simple. Do not get stalled on the fence with this guy. If you could defend the takedowns, you won the fight. Moving forward, these fights are not going to be as easy as it was against Neil Magny, unless he makes them look that easy. Then that would be insane. If he makes like Jeff Neal, for an example, look as easy as he just beat Neil Magny. I mean, this guy is top contender caliber already, but that's a really good next fight. I mean, both fighters with knockout power, great strikers. Jeff Neal has adjusted his mindset to be more offensive. He doesn't like the way he fought Ian Gary and some of his other opponents in the past where he was a lot more passive. He wants to be aggressive in his fights and deliver with knockouts, and he saw that against RDA. He let his hands fly against RDA, and if he fights like that against Carlos Prates, I think Carlos would win. I think it's a good stylistic matchup for Carlos, and it should be a good matchup for the fans to watch. So what do I think Carlos Prates' ceiling is in the sport? This guy's very, very good. If he's showing takedown defense like that against the better wrestlers of the weight class, I mean, it's going to be very hard for any fighter to beat this guy, but I'll say for now top 5. I think he's top 5 caliber. And the rest of the fights were pretty good as well. Like Reiner de Ritter submitting Gerald Mearshart. It showed to be a competitive fight for the first round. Gerald's landing big shots on Reiner, left hand, moving forward, moving backwards, and then the left elbow in the clinch, to where eventually Reiner was able to land a sudden 1-2 that rocked Mearshart, dropped him with a left hook as Mearshart was moving out on an exiting angle. Second round was mostly grappling, but in the third round looked like Gerald Mearshart was slowing down, and Reiner was able to get into full mount and submit it with their arm triangle choke. Good TKO win by Mansour Abdul Malik. Leg locks don't work in the sport, I guess. Every single time, besides some of Ryan Hall's wins, every single time, man, you see fighters go for leg locks and get TKO'd because of it. Mansour was raining down ground and pound when Dushko Todorovic was going for that leg lock, and even the best leg locker in the game, Ryan Hall, got finished by Ilya Topuria very easily for that submission as well. Zaleski annihilated Scroggin. Charles Radke getting a quick TKO against Semmelsberger. Just boxing combinations for both fighters, and Radke was just way more precise and powerful. Stunned him with the left hook, rocked him with a short right straight, dropped him again with another left hook with his combinations, and just an excellent win for Charles Radke. Damon Blackshear getting an insane submission win against Cody Stamann. He nearly landed the knee, stunned him with the left hook, and then put the pressure on Cody Stamann for a flying knee and started unloading with combinations against the fence. It looked like it was going to be another Phil Baroni vintage kind of knockout, making his opponent a bobblehead against the fence. Cody Stamann, though, as a wrestler, instinctively goes for a takedown. Blackshear goes for the back, they scramble, nearly submits it with a guillotine. Cody Stamann is something else, man, to survive that. That was so crazy how Stamann was able to fight out of that guillotine, but then eventually got submitted with a rear naked choke. He wasn't able to keep up with the scramble after getting rocked like that. Trishan Gore submitting Antonio Tricoli with a guillotine in the first round. Tricoli's supposed to be the submission guy. Gore went for a takedown, but then Tricoli reversed him against the fence. He went for a single leg, and Trishan Gore got him with that high elbow guillotine, where in my opinion has a much better finishing potential than the Armin guillotine. Great win by Trishan Gore. And then Melissa Dixon getting that second round TKO with ground and pound. While in full mount, she had her opponent's arm out to the side, pinning it on the canvas, and then just landing left hands into a TKO. Celebrated with some breakdancing moves. The prelims were insane, right? There was only one decision win on the entire prelims. A lot of good finishes. And there was a lot of downward elbows, I'll call them now, because the whole 12-6 elbow thing was just silly. I mean, you could throw 10-4 elbows, which is practically the same thing as a 12-6 elbow. So I agree with Michael Bisping. Just call that technique a downward elbow. You saw the technique a lot in the Dixon fight as well as the Jillian Robertson fight. It's used quite differently, right? It just depends on the angle that you can land it on your opponent. But I do like the standard smashing elbow more, as you can like throw your weight into it, which generally makes it more powerful than the downward elbow. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.